because you do have these big commercial wineries that, they do everything. But then you have some that are alternating proprietorships, and you have some that are custom crush, and you have, so you have all these also different business models on top of it. So you have to understand what's going on.
Now making the big switch from consumer to vineyard and winery. Uh, in 2022, I was lucky enough I got to take part in a harvest. And I'm sure, as you know, being so much in love with wine country, you don't even know what you don't know. There's so much going on there. So starting off, I want to hear about it in general, but are there just common misconceptions even about what should be insured and covered?
I mean, depending on what state you're in, you have your liquor control commission. And so if you are selling wine, they are requiring that you have liquor liability. That way, if somebody overdrinks or whatever, you are covered for their liquor consumption, more or less. The biggest misconceptions I see a lot of policies done by really the only carrier that was really in town, and their policies are very generic. And most people, I will say almost all people, don't speak insurance. And so you don't know what you're covered for until you're not covered for it. And so there's a lot of holes, gaps, and things like that if you're not paying attention. And so that, to me, is why the education piece was so important. And that way I know what all the equipment is that you're utilizing. So when you call me and say, hey, I have this pneumatic press that, blah, 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 we need to make sure we get that covered, or whatever they're doing. They run some forklift through some, poly tank or whatever. So knowing what's needing to be insured and what's not needing to be insured, or just even the education piece of what they do and don't have currently, is where we start. And then
Wow.
understanding the operation is even bigger, because you do have these big commercial wineries that, they do everything. But then you have some that are alternating proprietorships, and you have some that are custom crush, and you have, so you have all these also different business models on top of it. So you have to understand what's going on.
And I guess that's where it helps that you enjoy wine is and you're so deep into the wine world, is as you said, even though they're in their world immersed, they don't see it from the angle that you see it of protection and liability. So even if they think they're being responsible, chances are they might be missing something by accident.
Yeah, I mean, we had in 2020, when we had the big smoke event over here, with our farm policies, we have a little bit of coverage for smoke taint built into our
Hmm.
farm policies, because there is a big difference of what's covered in the vineyard and what's covered in the winery. So with the smoke, it was a vineyard policy and a farm policy because that's where the damage happened. And because one of my wineries did not tell me that they had leased this other vineyard, we
Hmm.
didn't cover, and they just assumed that because it was, farming, that it would be covered under their farm policy. So I'm trying to be very explicit. Like, when you change locations, whether you are leasing a new vineyard or you've moved your operations, which happens all the time. It's like merry-go-rounds around here. People change from location to location because of, X, Y, and Z. I'm like, you have to let me know, because if you don't, that wine's not covered.
So whether we're a consumer, whether we're a winemaker, whether we're a vineyard, and we want to learn more about insurance, tell us website, social media, what's the best way to learn more about your insurance work?
I would say that a Wine Crush podcast, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, are probably the best places to go, because I kind of skirt both sides of the fence with that. We do some Insure What You Love Thursday content, which is just kind of breaking down some of this stuff into English to where you can understand it. But honestly, either direct messaging me or calling me directly, is probably the best way to actually get your questions answered the best way possible. Our insurewhatyoulove.com is more of a generic look at the insurance that we do. But then you can also go to my Country Financial page as well, and get actual product specific with that.